Cybersecurity Today would like to thank Meter for their support in bringing you this podcast. Meter delivers a complete networking stack, wired, wireless, and cellular in one integrated solution that's built for performance and scale. You can find them at meter.com/CST. A lawsuit claims WhatsApp misled more than 2 billion users about message privacy. Google's new personality AI raises hard questions about how personal profiles are secured. Canada Computer's breach highlights the risk of delayed response to card skimming attacks, and 149 million stolen passwords exposed. This is Cybersecurity Today. I'm your host, Jim Love. A new class action lawsuit filed in the United States claims that Meta and WhatsApp misled their more than 2 billion users about the privacy of WhatsApp messages, despite years of assurances that the service uses end-to-end encryption that even WhatsApp itself can't break. The lawsuit was filed in federal court in California on behalf of users in multiple countries, including Australia, Brazil, India, Mexico, and South Africa. It alleges that WhatsApp, owned by Meta, has internal tools that allow employees to access and review message content under certain circumstances. According to the complaint, that capability contradicts WhatsApp's long-standing marketing claims that messages are readable only by the sender and the recipient. The plaintiffs argue that WhatsApp's encryption claims were central to its growth, particularly among users who rely on privacy for sensitive communications, including journalists, activists, and political organizers. They allege that Meta benefits commercially from user trust while operating systems that undermine those privacy expectations. Meta has denied the allegations, claiming the lawsuits are frivolous and categorically false. The company says WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol for end-to-end encryption and maintains that it cannot read users' messages, adding that it plans to seek dismissal of the case. The outcome of this lawsuit could matter well beyond WhatsApp. If the claims survive early legal challenges, it may force clearer standards about what end-to-end encryption really means in practice, and whether messaging platforms can promise privacy while still retaining internal access mechanisms. Google's new personal intelligence feature doesn't just personalize search results. It brings a long-standing but under-discussed security issue into sharper focus. As AI systems become more capable and more connected, they're quietly building detailed personal profiles about the people who use them. Google says its system does not use personal data to train its models, and that access to Gmail, Photos, and other services is opt-in and tightly controlled. Taken at face value, those assurances may well be accurate. But Google's move makes something unavoidable. And this is no longer just about Google. Systems like OpenAI and Anthropic's Claude already demonstrate the ability to infer surprisingly realistic personal characteristics from limited interaction. If you don't believe me, go on to either one of them and ask it to describe you. As users increasingly allow these tools to connect to calendars, documents, email, and work systems, those inferred profiles could become much more explicit and persistent and far more valuable. As users increasingly allow these tools to connect to calendars, documents, email, work systems, those inferred profiles could become explicit, persistent, and far more valuable. Which raises a hard security question. Not whether these companies intend to misuse personal profiles, but how these profiles are stored, segmented, and defended. A leak of highly structured AI-curated personal intelligence would be fundamentally different from traditional data breaches. It wouldn't just expose messages or photos. It could reveal behavioral patterns, relationships, habits, psychological cues, exactly the kind of intelligence cyber criminals and AI-driven scam operations would find extraordinarily effective. The consequences of a breach could far exceed past social media scandals. Compared to the Cambridge Analytica episode, which relied on relatively crude profile data, the exposure of AI-generated personal models could make that breach look trivial by comparison. And because of that value, it's reasonable to assume these systems will be under continuous scrutiny and even attack. So, Google's personal intelligence doesn't create this risk, but it makes it visible. As AI systems grow more personal, the real test may not be how useful they are, but whether the industry can convincingly demonstrate that the most intimate digital profiles ever assembled can actually be kept secure. A major payment card breach at Canada Computers is raising concerns, not just about the attack itself, but about how long it appears to have taken for the issue to be addressed after it was first reported. According to reporting by iPhone in Canada, a malicious credit card skimming script was discovered on the retailer's online checkout page by a customer who noticed suspicious behavior while inspecting the site's code. The individual reported the issue directly to Canada Computers on January 18th, submitting support tickets warning that the card details entered during the checkout could be intercepted. Reports are that those tickets were closed without the issue being resolved based on the customer's public account. The same reporting says evidence suggests the skimmer may have been active since late December 2025, although the exact start date has not been independently confirmed. The malicious code was removed only after the discovery was shared publicly on online forums, including Reddit, where other users examined the site and confirmed the presence of the script. iPhone in Canada reports that the code was taken down shortly after that. Canada Computers began emailing customers on January 25th and 26th, advising them to monitor statements and consider canceling affected cards. In its notification, the company acknowledged that the unauthorized code has been present on its website and said it was working with external cybersecurity experts to investigate. The company has not publicly explained why earlier reports did not lead to immediate remediation. This type of attack will sound familiar to regular listeners. We talked about this in mid-January about Mage Card-style web skimming campaigns where attackers were quietly injecting malicious code into checkout pages and siphoning off card data while transactions appeared to work normally. These attacks are designed to be hard to spot and can persist for weeks if no one is actively looking. But what stands out here is the apparent gap between when the issue was first raised and when action was taken based on timelines reported in the press and community posts. Under Canadian privacy law, organizations are required to notify individuals as soon as feasible when a breach creates a real risk of significant harm. Whether that standard was met in this case may depend on details that have not yet been made public. And as of now, Canada Computers has not disputed the reported timeline or released a detailed incident report. But if they do, and if we are wrong, we'll be glad to go to press with a correction. But the episode is a reminder that in web skimming attacks, speed matters, and delays can turn a contained incident into a much broader financial and reputation exposure. The discovery of a database containing 149 million stolen passwords leads to an uncomfortable but practical conclusion. At this scale, it's reasonable to assume that anyone's credentials could have been compromised. The database was identified by researchers at Hudson Rock, who traced the data back to InfoStealer malware infections. Rather than coming from a single breach, the credentials were aggregated from multiple InfoStealer campaigns and stored on an exposed server. That server was eventually taken offline, but only after the data had been discovered and analyzed. Hudson Rock says the credentials were likely accessed and copied before the takedown. That matters because InfoStealer data doesn't stay put. Once collected, it's routinely duplicated, resold, and merged into other criminal data sets. By the time a repository is shut down, the safer assumption is that the data is already in circulation. And what makes this data set different is how usable it is. The database reportedly links passwords with context pulled directly from infected machines, browser data, session cookies, and indicators of whether credentials may still be valid. Some InfoStealers also capture active authentication tokens, which in certain cases could allow attackers to bypass multi-factor authentication until those sessions actually expire. At this scale, this becomes personal pretty quickly. This isn't about whether you've received a warning email. It's about whether your credentials could be out there without you knowing. Might make it a good moment to change passwords on key accounts, especially email, financial services, and work systems. And if anybody is out there who is still reusing the same password in more than one place or hasn't gotten this message across to the employees in their company, they need to know this is exactly why that needs to stop. One important caveat: services like Have I Been Pwned may not actually reflect this kind of exposure. Troy's service, Have I Been Pwned, is deliberately cautious about what data it ingests. InfoStealer datasets are fragmented, constantly reshuffled, and difficult to validate responsibly, which means they don't always make it into public breach notification databases. So in this case, the absence of an alert does not mean the absence of risk. InfoStealer malware has turned credential theft into a background condition of the internet. The response isn't panic, it's realism. Assume exposure is possible, limit the damage if it happens, and please God, stop making attackers' jobs easier by reusing passwords. And that's our show. We'd like to thank Meter for their support in bringing you this podcast. Meter delivers full-stack networking infrastructure, wired, wireless, and cellular to leading enterprises. Working with their partners, Meter designs, deploys, and manages everything required to get performant, reliable, and secure connectivity in a space. They design the hardware, the firmware, build the software, manage deployments, and even run support. It's a single integrated solution that scales from branch offices to warehouses to large campuses, all the way to data centers. Book a demo at meter.com/CST. That's meter.com/CST. I'm your host, Jim Love. Thanks for listening.